Welcome in. I'm Luke Church. We're going to be hearing an interview which aired during Roots Veritas on Radio Bristol. It's an extended version of the talk I had with Paula Boggs. Her band, Paula Boggs Band, has a new album at the time, Sumatra. We talked about that and many other topics as well. Paula Boggs in an interview on Radio Bristol. Let's begin with your music. You describe it as soul grass. Would you care to elaborate?
I'll be perfectly honest with you. I was actually taking a plane from Seattle to Washington D.C. and I was seated next to someone who saw my ukulele, saw me put it in the overhead bin, and so she asked if I was a musician. I said yes, and she asked me to describe what I do, and I gave her this word salad of descriptors about what I do, and she said, "Oh, that sounds like soulgrass." And I said, "Are you in marketing?" She said, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, I'm stealing it." And from that moment on, that's what we've been calling what we do.
That's great. No torturous debate on what genre you fit in, so to speak. The song Route 66. I want to quote a line from that. It's not ordained how long we last. Fading milestones blur our past. Forward only works as an action verb. History only teaches what we want to learn. Now, in putting the album together and sequencing the songs and everything, did that become the through line for this new record?
It really did. It started while I was still framing the album, what I hoped it might be. And candidly, before I wrote Route 66, I was in a conversation with our producer, Tucker Martine, who this album is actually the third time we've worked with Tucker. And so I reached out to Tucker. I said, "Tucker, I've got this album. The band's got this album in us. I want you to produce it for us. And here's the thing about this album. I hope I write a lot more songs. I hope Paula Boggs Band creates many more albums. But if this were the very last album we do, I'd want the listener to have a connection and understanding about who I was and who this band is. And I'm writing songs that candidly I could not have written in my 20s. It has taken, a life lived so far to be in this place. And, I hope this album resonates multi-generationally, but the most important thing for a songwriter is to be authentic. And that's what this album is going to be. It's going to be authentically stories told that hopefully mean something to, best case, a lot of people.
Talking with Paula Boggs on Radio Bristol. Her band's new album is Sumatra. In checking out your band and the lyrics of your songs, I came to realize that one thing that you're all about individually and as a band is diversity.
Yes, very much so. And the name of this album, Sumatra, is a bow to that commitment that we have musically and how we live. Sumatra, the island, is certainly one of Earth's most beautiful places. It is one of Earth's most biodiverse places, but it is also a place where a lot of that diversity is endangered animals and endangered, plants. Uh, their soil. There's a lot of fragility in that diversity, and without nurturing, Sumatra will lose it. And because of that, I thought it a perfect metaphor for the themes of this album. And I'm pleased as all get out that that part of the album and of who we are spoke to you. The path that describes how I connected with each band member is a story in and of itself. And collectively, there's a lot of love and trust within this band, and it's one of the things we get a lot. I mean, people in the audience feel it. They feel that what they're seeing is not just genuine, but the people on the stage really love each other, right? They get that vibe that what I'm witnessing are people who find joy in what they're doing, but they also find joy in the community of being a band. And it's dare I use the word, it's part of our brand. It's part of why people come to see us, particularly people who come more than once. When they come for that second time, there's that expectation, that feeling, because let's face it, there's a lot of dark in the world right now. And the greatest compliment anybody can give me as an artist is when they say, I feel better at the end of your show than I did when I walked in the room.
That's beautiful. Paula Boggs on Radio Bristol. Her band, Paula Boggs Band, has a new album out. Sumatra is the title. Let's talk about your background. I understand that you have had quite a circuitous path to arrive at where you are now. Could you tell us a little bit of your backstory?
Sure, I'm happy to to share a bit of that. And after being born in our nation's capital, I actually spent time in Virginia. I lived in Virginia, not Roanoke. I lived in Chesterfield County between Richmond and Petersburg, between ages 4 and 13. And it's important to say that, because I think my time spent in Virginia really reflects some of the musical diversity that shows up in the music of Paula Boggs Band. And what do I mean by that? Well, I was living in Virginia at a time when Jim Crow was still with us, sadly. What that meant for me personally was I was a unicorn and a minority in many different groups. So I was living on a historically black college campus because my dad taught at Virginia State biology, which meant I was in this sort of micro community of black people who were highly educated. That was my petri dish. My dad was also Catholic, so I was a black Catholic, and blacks are only 10% of American Catholics, and Catholics were a minority in Virginia. It was a minority religion in Virginia at the time. So I was a minority within a minority space there. But I wasn't just Catholic. My mom, even though I was christened and baptized Catholic, my mom was African Methodist Episcopal. So I would toggle between those very different faith traditions. One Sunday I'd be in the Roman Catholic Church with the incense and minor chords and Gregorian chant, and the next Sunday I'd be in the African Methodist Episcopal setting with gospel and shouting and all of that spirituals. This album Sumatra speaks to both those traditions. It starts with Gregorian chant and it ends with spiritual. We left Virginia. I lived in Europe for a period, which exposed me to different kinds of music, including different kinds of folk music. Um, and then I went on my way. I got an Army ROTC scholarship. That paid my way for college. I got what the Army calls an educational delay to go to law school. I did well in both settings, and then I had 4 years of active duty. And for me, that meant a couple of years in the Pentagon and 18 months in Ronald Reagan's White House, working on the Iran-Contra investigation. So then I get out. I had fallen in love with Seattle. As a law student, I was in law school in California, and I was pretty much hell bent to move to Seattle after getting out of the Army. So I did, and that led me to be a federal prosecutor for 5 years, law firm partner, and then I moved to Austin, where for 5 years I was with Dell Computer. And then from there, I moved back to Seattle to become Starbucks' top lawyer. And I did that gig for 10 years before saying goodbye to Starbucks and law in 2012. And I've been doing what I'm doing now, full time ever since. And I think one of the lessons I take from that circuitous route is that, people, life is rarely a straight line. My life certainly has not been, but I don't think I'm unique in that way. Maybe the details of what my path has been are unique to me, but I think there are a lot of people who, through life, the curves can be big, and what I take from all of that, I thought music for me, because I started playing guitar at age 10, I started writing music at age 10. For people who knew me in middle school and high school and even college, they remember me in part as a musician. I came to think myself, though, music was something I used to do. And I was doing this other thing now. And I think a lot of people get to that point too. They have these passions of their youth, their childhood, and then, life gets in the way, if you will. Job, family, commitments, other stuff. And we think that's in our rear view. And sometimes if we don't reaccess it, it really is.
So, what brought you back to music?
What what I've learned for myself is music never left me. I thought I was leaving music, but it was always within me. It just needed to be reignited. And for me, that happened through tragedy. When my sister in law died suddenly in a car crash, I was urge to pick up my guitar as a way to grieve. And this is 2005. And the serendipity of that is around that same time, I found a songwriting class offered by the University of Washington, a 1 year thing. And even though I was Starbucks' top lawyer, I was persuaded to make the time to do that course 1 day a week for a year, which I did. And at the end of it, in '06, my teacher, was a mentoring moment, said to me, you know, Paula, I think you really have something with your songwriting. And what a shame it would be if you didn't keep going. Now, I didn't know what keep going meant for someone like me, because I had this, high-powered job that took a lot of my time. I had no idea what that might mean, but I decided it could mean, and it did become this for me, doing one open mic a month in '07. And that's what I did. I'd, schlep myself and guitar to, coffee house A, tea house B, and, play a song or two with that, lack of safety net for anybody who's ever done an open mic. There's no space between you and everybody else, and it can be one of the most terrifying things. But it certainly was for me at the outset. But I got better at it, and along the way, I started meeting people who dug my sound. And in addition to tour, I met a guy who's no longer with the band, but we're still friends. He actually lives in Hawaii now, who played guitar much better than me. And Mark Shannon became part of the band. I met a bass player through sort of that circle, and Brian played. We played together for several years before he moved on to do other things, and through him I met a drummer, and before we knew it, we had a band. And the only other thing about that I'll say is, something like that, this journey that I've just described, doesn't just happen, right? In my case, being at Starbucks at the time I was rediscovering all this in me was critical, because back then, I can't speak to what Starbucks is today, but back then, Starbucks was very much a magnet for creative people. There were a lot of actors, musicians, photographers, you name it, who were working at Starbucks as a way to fuel, whatever the artistic thing they were doing. And some of those people were in my space. Some of those people worked for me. And I had a lot of people rooting for me, who were rooting for me to reconnect with music, and were rooting for that journey. And so when I made the decision to leave Starbucks and law, some people didn't get it then, but 14 years later, I dare say most people do. They get why 10 years was a good run for me, and why I left, and why I'm doing what I'm doing now.
Paula Boggs joining us on Radio Bristol. The title of her band's new album is Sumatra. Let's talk about another song on this new record, and that would be Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around. That sounds like a protest song to me.
It is absolutely a timeless protest song. And the beauty of Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around for me is, I'm a roots musician, and that song is rooted in soil and blood, sweat, tears, and the affirmation that no matter how bad it gets, I'm going to find a way to move forward, and you can't hold me back from that. It gives the person who says those words, has agency. They're not a victim. They are going to find a way to, as I said in Route 66, forward only works as an action verb, right? And so for the album Sumatra, it was really important for me to end with resolve and celebration, but also resolve. And I could think of no better way than with this song and with the collaborators on this song, Blind Boys of Alabama and Valerie June.
You can hear the interview with Paula Boggs as it aired on Radio Bristol through the link in the description. It includes the songs mentioned, and you can hear the entire Roots Veritas show there as well. Simply click on the link and then click on the archived show dated August 10th, 2026.